So honestly, Seattle, King County, the Seattle mayor, the King County executive kind of work in tandem. They tend to be very progressive. Right now, we're with four-term executive Dow Constantine, who, as you know, announced he will not be seeking, oh, how generous of him, will not seek a fifth term in office. Instead, he's going to hope that he lands a cushy seven-figure job as the UW president. So now, of course, you've got the names immediately after that are coming out saying that they're going to run. And one of them is King County Councilman Zahilay. Here is his campaign video.
When my family came to the U.S. as refugees, King County gave us a chance to rebuild our lives. It became a place of hope, safety, and opportunity. A place where I could dream big and achieve more than I ever thought possible. I'm Zahilay, and I'm running for King County Executive to build a region where everyone has hope and opportunity, regardless of where you came from or the challenges that you face. King County should be a place where everyone feels safe, where housing is affordable, where healthcare is accessible, where we protect our air and our water, and where we set up our children to achieve their wildest dreams. In the face of a new federal government that will attack our values, King County must stand as a beacon of progress and unity. Together, we will defend our shared values, reject division, and ensure that our region remains a place of opportunity for everyone. Join me and let's build a new era in King County, an era of opportunity for all.
His baby's cute. I'll give him that. That's a cute little baby. You're welcome for us airing your political ad, free ad time. Here's the deal. Besides the obviously sort of like very expected line of, Trump, running on the dangers of Donald Trump or whatever it is. So Zahilay has been on our show before. He's a very nice man, nothing against him personally, but his politics are completely unsuited for the majority of King County. I mean, Seattle, maybe, but the rest of King County, he is far too progressive. And one of the things that has now become predictable in the last couple years is these progressive candidates to completely, again, shed an exoskeleton and pretend to be someone that they weren't just a few years ago. Zahilay did an in-depth interview with Como News when he announced his campaign. You want to guess what issue? You want to guess? What issue he's suddenly going to focus on, key to his campaign? Oh yeah, he's the public safety candidate. Ring a bell? Just like Bob Ferguson, man. All these people suddenly realizing public safety is a key issue. So I'm a public safety candidate. Como News says Zahilay announced his run for King County Executive, says public safety is a key issue. That would be fine if we didn't have the receipts. That would be fine if we didn't know his not so far in the past statements about the police. So this is, again, a common thread. I mean, you look at Kamala Harris. She ran as president as a totally different person than she was running in 2020, because 2020, everybody was on the police defunding bandwagon on the left. They were very, very anti-police. There were riots happening all around the country that didn't seem to bother them one bit. And then Kamala Harris runs in 2024 as the border state prosecutor, and same with Bob Ferguson, doesn't say jack shit about police defunding and all of that, and rioting and all of that, even as the state's chief law enforcer. And then he comes out and he's like, I'm the public safety candidate. So forgive me, Zahilay, if I just have a hard time believing that public safety is truly going to be a key issue for you, and one that you are able to actually address in the way that it needs to be addressed. Because, so just as an example, the council member was on, this is June 12th, 2020. What was happening June 12th, 2020? It was the formation of CHOP. So we were going through these riots, not only across the country, but in Seattle as well, these intense clashes in the lead up to the formation of the occupied protest zone between protesters and the police. Well, Zahilay went on a podcast called Pitchfork Economics. This is June 12th. Here's what he said about what was happening up on Capitol Hill, and also how he believed it tied to the pandemic that was happening at the time as well.
There are some people who don't really see the connection between COVID-19 and what happened to George Floyd. I think those are two very similar dynamics. Those are generations of unjust and unsustainable policies impacting marginalized communities, Black and brown communities, and playing out with death of a Black individual, George Floyd, or death of countless Black and brown people at the hands of a virus that disproportionately affects us. And so that's what I've been seeing play out, an unsustainable society and the masses that no longer want to live under these conditions, and people are rising up. That's what played out on Capitol Hill on Saturday night. It was incredible and powerful to see. to provide contracts. On one side, you see people taking care of one another, and on the other side, I just see what looks like a militarized police force. Riot gear, shields, batons for beating people. You look on the tops of buildings and you see more officers on the tops of buildings. And I saw pictures later where there were what appeared to be assault rifles or some kind of weapons that they had on the roof. And it's just a sight that will stick with me probably for the rest of my life, because I see what the protesters have been saying, and that is that our police forces are not the kinds of public safety systems that we want to see right now.
Yeah, so that was June 12th, 2020. And now fast forward 4 years and he's running for King County Executive with public safety as a key focus. Do you think that someone who had that kind of rhetoric toward police officers is believable as a public safety candidate 4 years later? I mean, I certainly don't. And I would also note, after he said that, talking about how powerful it was and how militarized the police, and oh my God forbid the police have guns. Well, it was just a few days later that the police evacuated that area, and that the area was taken over by left-wing rioters with what? Semi-automatic assault weapons that were handed to them out of the trunk of a car. And you saw very, very few elected leaders speak out about that. But if police have the guns that they're legally allowed to have and they use for their job, totally terrible, scary. And it's like, oh, but the CHOP warlord hands guns out of the trunk of his car, like, oh, they're protecting their new occupied protest zone. And of course, people went on to be murdered at CHOP, not by the police. The people who died at CHOP were not killed by the police. They were killed by the left-wing lunatics who were at CHOP. And so, I look forward, and we've reached out to Councilman Zahilay already today, and I look forward to next year having him on the show. I think it's a little early now, maybe after the legislative session, to talk to him about some of those statements he made in the lead up to CHOP, to talk to him about some of those statements he made about the police. He also said on that exact same podcast what his priorities in terms of criminal justice reform were going to be.
Number one, demilitarize the police. Number two, further restrict use of excessive or deadly force by police. Number three, increase accountability and transparency in police union contracts and that negotiation process. Number four, give subpoena and other investigative powers to independent oversight boards. And number five, redirect police department funding to community-based alternatives.
AKA defund the police. So he supported police defunding. He supported divesting money from the King County Sheriff's Office into community alternatives, which we know were a farce, which we know were a money grab, which we know were given millions of dollars in taxpayer funds, essentially as a bribe to stop the riots and the protests. That's what happened. I mean, how many of them, you go to the street czar, like Andre Jones. Was it Andre Jones? Was that his name? Andre Taylor. Andre Jones was someone I went to college with. I think that's why that come up. Andre Taylor, the street czar, got this lucrative government contract, then didn't do anything. Some of these other entities that it was literally just a bribe. It was like the city's like, just take money and go away, right? Stop calling us racist, stop rioting, stop burning buildings and police cars and all of this stuff. He supported that, though. He supported, at a time of high crime has only gotten worse, divesting money away from law enforcement, which is already stretched thin, which was already the lowest per capita of any state in the nation, and giving it to these community organizations that were not held accountable and continue to not be held accountable for those funds. It just made everyone feel good, right? And so now 4 years later, can you really believe him when he says that he is looking at the public safety issue in a different way? I asked that in our daily subscriber show poll, which we'll get to later on, but please take it if you haven't already on Patreon, Locals, and X, about, are you willing to vote for someone who supported police defunding if they have since walked away from that position, and how much time has to pass? The other thing, but there's a larger issue here, which I'll get to in a moment. He also supported closing the youth jail, when the youth jail construction trailers were being lit on fire in the summer of 2020, and they were, no youth jail. Well, a lot of politicians jumped on that bandwagon. Can't put kids in cages, of course, because we said that was bad during Trump, so we can't put even the worst of even young people committing horrific crimes. No youth jail. Got to close down the youth jail. I'll give credit to Como News because they did ask him about that. They asked him about his previous position on closing the youth jail because he has walked away from it. So as for why he supported it in the first place, he said, I go and talk to these young people in confinement. They tell me they leave there feeling dizzy and disoriented and unable to manage their emotions. And that's probably why we see such a high rate of recidivism when it comes to young people impacted by our criminal justice system. He went on to say, of course, he's backed away from the position of closing the jail. He said, we absolutely need secure buildings. And so what I'm advocating now is to make sure that we have secure buildings, but also let's transform what happens within those secure buildings. So that's a fine position. I've always been consistent kind of with that position that you have to have secure facilities for juveniles who commit horrible crimes, but also they're juveniles. I agree with the notion that maybe their brain's not fully formed yet. It doesn't mean I don't think they should be held accountable. But while you got them, 99.9% of them are going to get out someday unless they've committed, aggravated first-degree murder and been charged as an adult. So let's make sure that we are tailoring programs to young people so that they can turn their lives around when they get out. But here's the issue with that. That's always been my position. I'm not saying I haven't changed opinions on things over the years, but never something like that. Supporting police defunding and turning around 4 years later and saying, no, I don't do that. I don't support that anymore. Supporting closing a youth jail during a juvenile crime crisis and turning around and saying, no, now I support sort of this more nuanced approach to it. To me, what it shows, and I don't know how old Gurmai Zahilay is, one of the things I've admitted that at 36, I'm still forming my opinions on things. I'm also not running to be the King County executive. I'm also not running at 36 for public office while I'm still forming my worldview a little bit. It shows an immaturity, in a way, to jump on the bandwagon of what people are demanding in the moment. And to not sit there as a leader and say, look, I know you want this and I know you want that. I know you have this long laundry list of things that you're taking to the streets to demand, but here's why that's not feasible. I hear you, I understand you, but here's why that's not feasible. So a little bit of immaturity, but also there's older politicians who have exhibited the same sort of thing. Bob Ferguson, Kamala Harris. So it's not just an age issue. I think it's a first and foremost being driven by ideology, but also being incapable of saying no. I think it shows someone who's incapable of saying no to bad ideas, even when it might hurt them politically, especially when it could hurt them politically. I have the utmost respect for leaders and politicians who are willing to say no to the worst impulses of their own party. And I have not seen that from Gurmai Zahilay. I have not seen that from Bob Ferguson. There are a lot of Democrats, and I'm not saying there aren't Republicans too, who have shown that they're incapable of saying no to the worst impulses of their own party, even when they know that what their own party is pushing or where the fringes of their own party are pushing is a really bad idea.